This is What's Neat Podcast, show number 35. Tonight we got models to show off. We got a gentleman, Ron Pare, all the way from Canada, joining us tonight via Skype, and a whole lot of other info. So stay tuned for this What's Neat This Week podcast.
The What's Neat This Week video podcast is supported by enthusiastic model railroaders just like you. Additional support is provided by Athearns Trains. Check out all their new monthly announcements at athearn.com. And by Walthers, everything you need to build a great model railroad. Visit their website at walthers.com. And thank you for your support. This is the What's Neat This Week podcast, number 35 for May 12th, 2018. I'm your host, Ken Patterson, the host of the What's Neat show at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine. And tonight we've got all the way from Canada with us, Ron Pare on the big screen right there next to Michael Budde right here, and Daniel Coombs. And we've got a lot to talk about tonight. First of all, I want to say, Mike, you can participate in this, and that's the Microtrains announcement of them coming out with those pre-weathered boxcars. I had some photographs here of just this magnificent-looking set of freight cars. You remember looking at those, Mike?
Yeah, there was a Boston and Maine 40-foot boxcar, and I guess they photographed maybe a real car with the rust side streaks and everything, and somehow pad printed that onto a model.
It was pretty amazing.
Complete with faded paint and everything. It was pretty amazing.
Pretty neat that they can pad print weathering like this on freight cars.
Right.
The rail box car, the tank car. Hats off to Microtrains for that. Also in the news this week, and this is actually news from February, but it's just starting to affect people because they're starting to figure it out, and that is that Shinohara is no longer producing turnouts and track. The family in Japan has decided to retire. They want to just enjoy life and not work anymore, and they didn't have anybody else to pass the business on to. I got this information off of a Japanese blog, and my computer was able to translate the story so I could effectively describe what is sort of happening. But my guess would be that if there are manufacturers out there that are interested in the track business, they're probably contacting these folks and trying to see if they can salvage part of that business. But right now, that's why Shinohara track products are in short supply. And that's kind of news, nothing else. Luke Towan this week introduced a brand new video on his website, and he's that gentleman from Australia that we all like watching his videos. And this month it was a 3D printer, which is called the Anycube Photon Resin 3D printer. And what it does is it prints in resin, but it takes UV light to cure it. So in order to print out the container that Luke made for us for the video here, it took about 9 hours. So it's really interesting that the technology is evolving further from what was plastic filament to this resin, which is very crisp, makes incredible. The next thing in the news I've got is Rapido. Now there's a video on Rapido's website. Jason made this beautiful, he's purchased the Edmondson, a gorgeous sleeper, okay? And Jason rode this car once, and so it was his desire to completely refurbish this passenger car into something beautiful. And what I got from the video is that he bought it sight unseen, just by looking at photographs, when there's nothing wrong with that. But he also planned on about $100,000 in rehabbing on the freight car, when in reality it's going to go beyond $200,000. But this is going to be a beautiful car. I've got a lot of experience when it comes to the passenger train industry. I was involved in that a little bit in the year 2007 when I myself was looking at purchasing a heavyweight Pullman car. My purchase price on that was going to be $25,000, and this was back in 1987 money. And I had a place to put it. My buddy upstairs in the office building, Glenn and Steel, had a beautiful garage at Granite City over there in the Glenn and Steel building, and we were going to roll the car into this facility and just let it sit there because they had dead space and they were going to let us use it and finish this car off. But as more I got into the numbers and finding out how deep it would be, it came down to that or an apartment complex or buy something else. So that I gave up on that. But hats off to what Jason has done. And if you visit the Rapido website, you are able to donate to having this passenger car refurbished, which would be a really cool cause. So Mike, tell us, I see you brought some vehicles this week. What do you got going on here?
Well, speaking of Rapido, I worked on a couple of their buses. I made some signs for the sides and the backs and fronts of the buses. by printing old things off the internet that I remembered, cigarette ads, and things that were big in my life at the time, KC Radio and Emo's Pizza.
And that is so exactly what I remember, KC 95.
Right.
Hey, I listen to that to this day. That's
Yeah.
the only station I listen to.
It's 51 years old. They started in '67, but back in the '70s, when the buses had those signs on the side, they were highly coveted items because they looked really nice on your living room wall of your apartment. But that's one of the lighted buses there, and I really like these buses. And I know I talked to a guy named Josh at Rapido on the internet, and he's talking about the second run of Toronto and Montreal, and as well as some other cities are working on licensing issues. So as far as the auto carrier goes, that's the cab we were talking about last week that I did. And this is one of Ed Richardson's auto carrier models that eventually became the Lone Star model, but he gave me one to work on. I cut it up a lot. I'm working from a prototype photo that I took in 1979, and the hard part is keeping it under 13 foot 6 inches because I'm doing it all according to the prototype. So that's what I got going on with vehicles this week.
That's pretty cool, Mike. Every week it's always something new, and it's never the same thing twice.
Well, maybe.
How cool is that? Now, Mike, you might know something about this switch engine right here. Brad Slone, you all will remember Brad Slone as the gentleman who helped me set up those Central Valley bridges. I said that once before. But Brad is a really cool guy. He's been visiting me quite often here. And he brought this Davenport Frisco 44-ton locomotive over here. It started out as a Bachmann frame 44-ton, just the frame off the 44-ton model. And he added new side frames to the trucks, and he scratch-built the entire superstructure and cab from scratch out of styrene, and he painted this beautiful blue and white Frisco color.
So this is like a fictional engine.
No, this is absolutely prototype.
I've never seen the blue and white Frisco scheme other than that Meteor train.
This was a prototype.
The screen work is fantastic on the front too.
Oh my
I went
gosh.
through my books. I couldn't find it, but I'll check the internet. I know it's out there somewhere.
Pretty dang
Another
neat.
thing he brought by here was a beautiful Frisco passenger train, and this was being pulled by a Glacier Parks model, a brass locomotive, a 484 Northern, but it was painted blue in the Frisco Meteor number 4501. It was a beautiful brass locomotive. I mean, just made me drool at how nice this was.
I think the prototype still exists today in maybe
Tulsa.
Tulsa.
Oklahoma.
And then there's another one in Texas, 4500.
No, there's another one in Springfield, Missouri, I think.
Okay. But 4501, I believe, is in Tulsa.
Yeah, that's the Meteor.
So, and there's an owner of one of the passenger cars, the original passenger cars from that train, Cimarron River, lives here in St. Louis, and he's got it painted in the red and silver Frisco scheme. It's parked down by Union Station a lot, but he does excursions in that car.
Yeah, I used to know the gentleman, Ed Boyce, that owned those two tracks down there at Union Station. Now, Ed used to own Innsbruck, that retreat, that beautiful getaway in Missouri down there. But he owned those two tracks that pulled into Union Station, and they would charge people rent to park their passenger trains down there. And if you wanted utilities and waters, it was a lot, it just all added up. And that's where we were planning on parking this car. How did I get back on that story?
That's where the Cimarron River is usually parked, under the overpass there.
It was really neat the way they had that all set up. Now, are you guys familiar with this MEK? MEK.
I know it's a solvent.
Methyl ethyl ketone. Now, I used to sell this at the hardware store, but I knew it as a product that you would mix with resins. And to be honest with you, I know this is something that I think I should have known and I didn't. But for those of you that don't, we're all going to learn this together. This is the tip of the day. Now, what is it? That's cement we used to use from Plastruct, and the other stuff was called Pro Weld.
Right.
And they came in the 2-ounce bottles for about
Ambroid.
$3 or $4.
Yep.
And that's what we used to glue our plastic buildings together with. You put the paintbrush in the jar and put it on the model, and your parts would stick together because it would eat the plastic. Well, guess what? That's what this stuff does, this MEK. You get a whole quart of it. You can buy a gallon of it for $12. A quart of it here, I think, is like $7. And I took this Walthers grain elevator today. We were putting together this really nice grain elevator because I needed some more parts. And Anna was helping me in the shop cut apart the parts. But I glued a couple of walls together using the MEK and a paintbrush right out of the can.
And what were the results?
It's set up instantly. It's set up square. I put the part down. It was just like that. It was glued. So it was really neat the way this MEK works, similar to that of the other plastic glues that I was always familiar with. So, yeah, check this out, guys. This is a savings of great amounts to just purchase it this way and then put it in your own, glass tube, glue gun or glue needle. And that was something I wanted to bring up on the show because I actually just discovered it 2 days ago when Brad was here. And it just made me feel great. I mean, because it works.
Okay.
So that's that. So I don't need this on the Prairie Co-op grain elevator anymore. Now we've got word from Walthers, and I want you to help me with this, Dirk. This is a Walthers program that our sponsor Walthers has, and it's called the Yard Masters Club. And what it is, it's a program where you can receive discounts on shipping on orders that you place with Walthers when you order from them off of their website, and or it also gives you a discount whereas you get a free Walthers catalog every year, be it digital or otherwise. Dirk, what can you tell us about that?
This is for consumers. It is called the Walthers Yard Masters Club. It's now have an exciting new option to get the Walthers reference book in the format of your choice. The 2019 Walthers reference book will be available in digital format as part of the new Walthers app. Here are some points that you're going to get as a consumer. Super low sale prices for members on select products each week. Free standard shipping on all in-stock orders of $75 or more. Free standard shipping on back orders of $20 or more. And a free reference book. If your print or digital book has yet to be published, we'll ship it and provide the instructions. The points of you have three choices. You can go the Yardmaster Club, Walthers 2019 Yardmasters Club, print and digital reference books, or your Yardmaster Club for just the digital reference book, or the print reference book, all for $39.95 a year. If you need any more details, special terms, conditions, you'll also have reduced standard shipping fee of $5.50 on in-stock orders between $25 and $74.99. Just simply go to www.walthers.com/yardmasters- that's that little dash, club. Type that into your Google or your Bing or whatever and go right to their website and check out this brand new program.
So it sounds like to me, once I get the free catalog and once I get my first order shipped for free, I just broke even. So
Right.
there on else, everything
That's
else
what
is
I'm
gravy. So rock and roll, hats off to
Yep.
Walthers for coming out with something neat, some new program, and thank you very much for helping us sponsor the What's Neat This Week podcast. We really appreciate our family up there in Milwaukee at Walthers. Also this month, we've got Athearns as a sponsor of the show, and I want to talk about their new SD45T2 diesel locomotives. These are going to be gorgeous now. You know they are, coming out with that sound, that beautiful...
Economy.
Absolutely. And also this cotton belt is in the bicentennial paint scheme, which I think is gorgeous with the gold trucks. What a beautiful model. But you've got some information you want to talk about some other paint schemes,
All right.
Daniel?
Well, I'm sure you're screen capturing this. They're also doing the National Railway Equipment or NREX patched locomotives from former SP tunnel motor units. Then we got some Cotton Belt and Southern Pacific with the Ready to Rust. So it's basically primed for grime. So this last one, we're going to briefly go over this paragraph right here. Montana Rail Link SD45T-2s. Okay, now this is a fictional thing that they're doing. They just tried to get some of the prototype specs of the engine to make this paint scheme. So let's read. When the Union Pacific absorbed the Southern Pacific in 1996, so many numbers of SD45T-2 diesels started parting ranks from the parent railroad. The MRL and the SRY never owned the 45T-2, but there was a time in the railfront community that was hopeful that these ragtag units would find their way to the Montana Rail Link. So former SP EMD 220 cylinder diesels made it to the Montana Rail Link in early 1990s. In the summer of 2004, a group of NREX 45T-2s were being stored in Livingston, Montana, further fueling the hopes of rail fans.
So in other words, these were the things that were going to come out if they had bought those.
Correct.
And Athearns did something pretty neat in that they came up with what number schemes that Montana Rail Link already had in their fleet of locomotives, and if they had purchased these, about what numbers these would be. So they already thought that ahead.
Tricky.
So this is a pretty neat paint scheme
Yes,
on an
it is.
engine that we all thought would happen. And they just sat there, and it didn't happen. And a lot of Montana Rail Link engines were purchased by the Southern Railway of British Columbia. And therefore, they imagined these units being sold to them. And therefore, you now have these really cool paint schemes that fit a void in your imagination.
Also, one other thing they're selling, they just coming out with this, is the new chassis with your 45T-2s to where the rear gear is moved forward, and you basically get a chassis that has the economy sound speaker and LED lights
Wow.
included for, I think, where's the price? 100 without sound is 109.98, and with sound is 169.98.
So this is that brand new tunnel motor frame where the gears are moved
Yep.
forward and you can see clear through the screen. So you can replace your shells that you've already tricked out with a new underframe and sound.
Right, and you don't have to buy a totally new locomotive.
That's kind of cool. That's what Overland
Hey, that's
Models
pretty
used
smart.
to do.
Whoever
right.
thought of it, I don't know if it was Chris or who, but that's a pretty ingenious idea. In
So
my
hats
opinion.
off to that. That's that
Yeah,
with
good job,
Athearn.
Athearn.
Really appreciate that really cool stuff that they're coming out with those SD45T2s. Now, John Abaticola at TSG Multimedia finally came out with that Marklin layout that he talked about on last week's show, where they had this folding layout that was imported from Germany to California and da-da-da-da-da, and it finally made its way where he's got a great video on his website, the TSG Multimedia YouTube site, where you can watch that Marklin layout. I watched it today and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you very much, John Abaticola, for playing along with us on last week's show. That was great. So what else is going on, guys?
Speaking of paint schemes of things that never happened, these F45s up here in the Kodachrome scheme, some people called that the shouldn't paint so fast scheme, SPSF.
You know what? That's really cool. And Ron Pare, what do you think about that paint scheme? You remember when that happened?
I kind of like it.
Ron, can we hear you?
What paint scheme? Those
He probably
those ones on
can't
the
see.
table?
Oh, you can't see it because that's blocking you right there. The Don't Paint So Fast, the Santa Fe Southern Pacific paint scheme, Kodachromes is what we used to call
Yeah,
those.
'cause-
And I took a great amount of time with my CTC board magazine to paint that one unit. And Chris asked me, he said, Ken, why don't you put that on the table tonight and show us the one that you did when you were, 18 years old, or whenever at the time was that I did that. I can't remember what year it was now. And then, of course, is the Athearn unit right next to it. And Athearn's unit, I mean, I did the best I could do on that unit. And the Athearn unit still, the way it comes factory, looks so much better. So the folks in China model better than I do. There's hands down. I can't. But Ron, tell us what you want to talk about tonight. We're glad to have you on. We haven't ignored you for the last 10 minutes, but we had a lot of different stuff we had to cover.
Well, thank you, Ken. Recently, I got sent a kit to build, and it is called the Value Fuels and Oils, and it is a very nice kit. And the thing that I'd like to point out is I've been building kits for a long time, and the instructions on this kit are the highest quality that I've seen in a long time. And the kit is actually very cheap at under $100. So it's an amazing kit, and I'm pretty happy to be able to build it. And it's from Showcase Miniatures.
That's
And
awesome.
the designer is Jason Jensen, and he's an amazing artist. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Now, you make a lot of videos. I think you've got a YouTube site yourself, and you've done a lot of painting. And tell us about your YouTube site, Ron.
Just Another Scale Modeler is the name. And yeah, I build kits live and chat with viewers so that we can do kind of like a Q&A style video.
I love watching some of your videos, and you involve your family in them, and I really get it's just wholesome, fun entertainment to sit there and hang out with Ron Pare as he's building something while I'm sitting here drinking a hot cup of coffee and enjoying it. Because A, I don't have to do the work, and B, you do quite honestly good work. Now, I understand you've done some dioramas for Jason up at Rapido, where they use those for photography. Tell us a little bit about that relationship.
A couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to build a diorama for Rapido trains, and recently I got to expand that layout into a display layout, and that was a great opportunity. I'm really proud of it.
No, that was really great. And you talked to Jason this week on my behalf, and Jason said, I want to know what the numbers are. So Jason Schroen at Rapido, the numbers
Schroen.
on Thank you very much, Daniel. The numbers on the What's Neat This Week podcast in the last 28 days, ending in May 10th, 2018, are 37,291 views on all of the shows. A few of the shows have just broken 10,000 in the last 8 or 9 days. And we're just getting some very strong numbers. And if it works out the way the What's Neat show worked out, I expect that we will just only increase and get closer to 20,000 would be my guess. But all the countries that we've been reaching, I've got pages and pages of countries here, guys. What are all these countries? Are there that many countries on the globe?
There's more than that, for sure.
Spain, Portugal, Singapore.
I got Egypt, Kuwait,
Vietnam, China,
like
Sri Lanka.
Virgin Islands, and
Malaysia.
unknown region. What?
Yeah, Namibia, Turkey. I
Yeah.
saw on here Kuwait. There's 46 people that watch the show in Kuwait, so that's up times 4 times from
Saudi
just
Arabia, Iceland,
3 months
Pakistan,
ago.
Belarus, so we're reaching like global. We're not just.
Chile,
Could
Turkey,
the
Finland.
unknown
Man.
region?
I didn't
the
know there
unknown
was this many
region
countries in the
is-
world, but I
Hold
wasn't
on,
that
Ron's
smart in
trying to
school.
say something.
I'm sorry, what?
Ron,
Ron?
Could the unknown region be the space station?
Okay, there goes the sound bars. Did I mention that we have folks tonight with us? Everybody who's in the room tonight? You don't need to twist the cameras around, Dirk, because then I'm going to rely on his camera. But yeah, it's amazing that we do have a lot of friends that come by to visit and watch the show get produced here on a Saturday evening.
and Ken, who's on camera too?
Who is on camera too, please, Dirk?
Hi, I'm Josh.
Hi, Josh. Josh, thank you for coming in our back door and helping
Sure,
us
man.
run the cameras.
Thanks for asking.
Good to have you.
Last week we had a different gentleman running camera number 2. So anybody who knows how to run cameras, once you show up in the back door, you're getting put to work. It's our show. It's produced by us. We got to do it ourselves. So if you show up the back door, you're going to get put to work, right, Mike?
Right.
Yeah, like you do that to me all the time.
That's why Ron's smart. He's staying far away.
Daniel, what about
Yeah.
this boxcar up here from Jeremy?
Well, all right. So I guess we'll just be the last one before we wrap. Okay. Well, I have actually been in contact with some few viewers from What's Neat. First, with this reefer, I'd like to thank Jeremy Hernandez from, I think, Corpus Christi, Texas. He had Facebook friended me from the podcast, and today I got this in the mail from him because he kind of messaged me a little saying to say, remember one thing. I say, what's that? He's like, a good friend from Texas. And he says, you'll see Thursday tomorrow. And sure enough, I did. So, Jeremy, I want to say thank you very much for this reefer. It will go well with my Union Pacific fleet. He said just consider it an Eagle Scout gift, and I do thank you again for that. Also, shout out. So, Jeremy's not the only one getting a shout out. So, we got Corey McGovern from Oklahoma. So, how are you doing, Corey? His favorite railroad, though, is the Burlington Northern. So, he's kind of an old, I think, Frisco BN type of guy before the BNSF. I met him through a Facebook group, HO Scale Model Railroading. So, thank you for watching, Corey. And then lastly, I had met a Sean Dickerson from the HO Scale Model Railroading group. I didn't get where he lives or what road he models, but it's just amazing how I was also, Corey tagged me like in one of those comments with my name to say, look at this unit lash up, and another guy said, so that's the Dino Coombs from What's Neat? And
That's
he said
the guy.
very same. And
That's you.
That's the guy.
Now, who was the young man? I got some release forms signed by his parents this week because he wants to be on the
Andrew Gray, and he's really been
Andrew
bugging
Gray.
to get
I met
on the
Andrew
show.
Gray in Indianapolis, Indiana, during the show, the NMRA show there. I think he was 13 years old then. And he did a segue for What's Neat. He said, you're watching What's Neat. Hi, I'm Andrew Gray, and you're watching What's Neat.
Yeah.
And it was cute because you can't beat that talent of the youth. But all of a sudden I understood the videotape laws where you got to be of a certain age to be able to put people on camera or the parents will sue you. So evidently he's signed some release forms and he's legit, so we can have another Daniel on the show very soon.
Yeah, probably over Skype because he lives over, I think, maybe in 45 minutes away from Chicago or whatever. But
That's awesome.
So for the 3 guys to give a shout out to, thank you very much for being viewers of What's Neat.
That's awesome. The last thing I see we got on the table here is this glue from Woodland Scenics. We use this glue for gluing down figures and
Right.
people's
Somebody
feet.
asked about that.
Okay?
Yeah.
I got news for you. When I made the Walthers diorama illustrating the new Walthers turnout system, I know. When I built this thing, what I didn't talk about was how did I attach the fascia to this piece of foam so that I could just peel it right back and show you what was inside. Well, I use this Woodland Scenics temporary tack glue that I just talked about that I use for people's feet, and it works great on this. I know. There's
Yeah,
my
don't
soundbar
slam
check.
it to hurt my ears.
So, I mean, and this has been on here for now going on 2 weeks. You saw us do the show 2 weeks ago, and it's still here. And it's not coming off yet. So I think there's other applications for this glue.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like Post-it notes, except for this is plywood. So it's
Yeah, like the
Post-it
sticky
notes on
Post-its.
steroids, right?
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to bring that up because it's something that I thought was interesting. And rather than to make a What's Neat segment for the main show over at Model Railroad Hobbyist, we could just talk about that on the podcast because it's simple and sweet.
Right.
Ron, what else would you like to talk about before we end this one, number 35?
Oh, me?
When you coming to town, brother?
Probably in a couple of weeks, I hope.
Okay, so you're going to come to town here and build something for us, right?
Ron, you mentioned.
Actually, I'm gonna. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say you mentioned Jason Jensen. I see his stuff on Facebook a lot. He's really a talented guy with those structures. Pretty amazing.
Oh, he's an amazing talent.
Do you guys work together, or?
No, we're just friends. We got in touch over Facebook, like Daniel does with his friends over there, and Facebook's a really great place to connect.
Right.
For farmers. It's unbelievable when you can connect in these tight groups that are,
Mm-hmm.
leave the politics and all those other things out of it. And it's, Facebook's a great thing. But also, I'm working on an O-scale kit by Carolina Craftsman Kits. There's many wood craftsman kit companies out there these days, and these kits are really nice.
Very
Nice to
cool,
build.
man.
Oops.
Very cool.
Live broadcast.
There you go. That's why we unplugged ours. But you are definitely, I'm going to see you very soon. I look forward to that. I look forward to what you're going to build for the What's Neat show. So you're always welcome, Ron. It's all good. So with that,
Thank you very
gentlemen,
much.
I think this might be a wrap on number 35.
I don't have anything else. Mike, do you have anything else?
Well, Dirk didn't bring his firehouse. The emergency firehouse is getting
Give me
worked on.
2 weeks.
2 more weeks. We'll get
2
to
weeks.
see
2 weeks.
the old
You sure about that?
1970s
Yes, I'll have
Supposed to
something in
mention
2 weeks.
that elevator at all?
Yeah, I pretty
I
much
like
covered
that.
it. Yeah, I covered it. That's another prop I'm working on, that Walthers grain elevator. And I think we talked about that when we were talking about the glue, Mike.
Yeah, we did.
That was a
Yeah,
pretty
we did.
neat structure. Anna helped me put that together. All right, guys. So with that, I think it's time for us to do a run-by on the layout, set up something, get something good. So let's go run some trains.
How about it?
And we want to thank you very much, Ron Pare, for being with us from Canada. And Michael and Daniel, I love both you guys. Thank you for helping with camera, you guys.
Josh.
Because this is our show. We're doing it by ourselves. We're just model railroaders for model railroaders doing the best we can just to promote the best hobby in the world. I know that sounds, but it's the truth. It's the God's truth. All right, guys, we're closing out podcast number 35 on May 12th, 2018. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Please leave your readers' comments. And everybody, thank you for coming by tonight.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.